One of the most beloved stories in the Bible comes from today's reading in Matthew. All this week we're following Jesus as he makes his journey from Galilee to Jerusalem before he enters the city on Palm Sunday, listening to what he says to the different people he encounters along the way. One of the most memorable encounters along the way is with the many children people brought to him for his blessing. But believe it or not, even this was not without controversy. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. I quote a portion of this story every time I baptize a child. I always quote from the King James Version because of its long and deeply felt associations and the way it reminds us of our own experience of childhood. The version I quote is actually from Mark, but the meaning is the same. I say, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God." It kind of takes us back to a deep place of peace and comfort, a place even beyond the plain meaning of the words themselves. When I hear these words, I am always transported to when I was a small child, and church was one of the places I felt most loved and most secure. Without in any way wanting to negate that safe feeling, I want to place this passage in context. For like a lot of the episodes along the way from Galilee to Jerusalem, this one involves a note of conflict. Here is Matthew's version, reading not from the King James, but from the New Revised Standard Version. Then children were being brought to him in order that he might lay his hands on them and pray. The disciples spoke sternly to those who brought them, but Jesus said, "Let the children come to me, and do not stop them, for it is to such as these that the kingdom of heaven belongs." And he laid his hands on them and went on his way. When I read this account and how it was the disciples who were fussing at the people for bringing their children, I just have to shake my head. After all this time with Jesus, and they still just don't get it, do they? But I guess it makes a certain amount of sense. They probably see themselves as his roadies, his personal protectors, keeping the riffraff away. They knew he was on a mission, and they probably just wanted to help him get on with it. No doubt they saw these people and their children as little more than a bothersome hindrance, a distraction at best. In that sense, I sympathize with them. They were just doing their jobs, as they understood their jobs. But Jesus was not sympathetic to his disciples' motives. He is clearly put off by his disciples' treatment of the people bringing their children to Jesus. Mark even includes the note that Jesus was indignant at them. But whether out of indignation or not, Jesus' words to his disciples were unquestionably sharp, a tone we don't really pick up on when we just read the words of Jesus apart from this context. So, why is this passage even here, and what does it mean? Well, what it means is pretty straightforward. Little children live with a sense of total and complete trust in their parents. Sure, they try to get away with stuff, as children do, but when it comes to a sense of trust, young children have typically not yet reached the moment when they realize their parents are neither perfect nor all-powerful. As a result, they trust. A childlike faith, therefore, is a faith in which we place our full and complete trust in God, knowing that God has our well-being at heart at all times and will never let us go. It's not so much a simplistic faith, but a trusting faith that Jesus seems to have in mind here. But why place this story here on the way from Galilee to Jerusalem? Well, the short answer is that it may well have taken place on this journey, but I think there's more to it than that. The gospel writers seem to have been very selective about what they chose to include in the gospel narratives. As the writer of John put it, "But there are many other things that Jesus did. I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that would be written." No, this story is here for a reason other than just straight reporting. I think it is to emphasize the complete and total trust Jesus had for the Father in facing his own death in Jerusalem. Without that kind of full and complete trust, it seems unlikely that Jesus would have gone through with the events in the days ahead. Trust is as good a word as any to describe what faith is really all about. And if you want to learn what trust looks like, look at the trust of children. Tomorrow, Jesus gets a question about salvation from a wealthy young man. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.